but I do have a lot of influence, so I'm hopeful that there will be... Okay, nope. And all these little walls as well that the villagers have created and things. So it is definitely going to make things much harder, especially considering Iceni is... As I gave the order to have our archers hold position, I thought to myself, oh, that doesn't seem to really make much difference, does it? Yes, we have one archer. That's the reason. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, let me just place that one archer over there, and, well, he's going to be very pleased to be standing by himself, that's for sure. Anyway, welcome back to our Sturgian Viking. And we're going to be attempting to fight a very large Vlandian force. I know it doesn't seem like a particularly large Vlandian force because they don't even have that good a combat strength in this particular encounter. However, trust me, they do. They do actually have a pretty large force here. However, we just have a better one because Ragnvad himself was in the area and they were raiding one of my villages, if you can believe it. Yes, not a big fan of that, thank you very much. So I was appearing out of nowhere to basically be like, oh yeah, what you doing? What are you doing here? You know, why are they trying to raid my village? I'm not a big fan. So I, asked them very politely what they were doing and they said, we're here to murder all of your villagers. And so I was like, okay, I don't particularly appreciate it. And then Ragnvad appeared out of nowhere and said, I don't appreciate it either. So I have come to assist you, Iceni. And I was like, well, thank you. Thank you very much. And that is exactly what has happened. And so Mr. Ragnvad and ourselves in this battle together against a pretty significant force. They have about 280 units total, and I'm actually kind of surprised that they were just raiding a village with this. Not entirely sure why they would only raid a village rather than doing something else a little bit more useful, like, for example, besieging something. I think besieging something would be definitely a much better use of their time. But who am I to say? I'm not the Vlandian commander, I'm just kind of surprised that they decided not to do anything else with their current combat strength. And it's pretty good, as I said. So, well, I suppose things surprising notwithstanding, we are going to do pretty well here. Hopefully level up my two-handed weapon proficiency. And speaking of, well, skills and proficiencies and things like that, I have leveled up. Iceni has leveled up just purely from the fact that steward skill and leadership have been improving consistently over the course of my off-screen time as well, because obviously if you have a suitable amount of food and you have decent morale levels, you're going to be gaining those skills no matter what. So just a basic passive benefit right there. Anyway, 98 renown. Now, I took a bit of a risk. I wonder whether you can tell, or whether you can guess, should I say, which risk I may have taken. Let me just scroll down here while you think about it. There he is. Yes, I actually had my newly acquired husband in here, and it is a miracle that he did not die. However, as you no doubt saw from the message, and I don't know whether you noticed in my commentary, I actually paused for a very brief second to just take a look and see that purple, that doom writing. That's basically what it is. It's doom writing at this point. Anytime I see that shade of font, I'm always like, okay, wait a minute. What's going on here? That's the kind of thing that happens now. So thankfully, we are able to avoid the Grim Reaper's scythe this time around, but no doubt it will touch us next time. So we'll continue to be very vigilant about that. I actually wanted to get him in my army purely for the fact that I was just going to wait around and hopefully he was going to, actually do something in the bedroom for once and, maybe get Iceni pregnant or maybe do something in that regard, because I don't exactly know what the developers have done with the whole conception thing. I just know that a couple of people have told me in the comments that conception takes between, I believe it is 2 days and 2 weeks to actually occur. Now, let me actually just take a quick look here, because I would like to make sure. Okay, we are 34, so we are perfectly within the age limit. The age limit for having a child in this game is 45, and so obviously we have 11 years. That's a very suitable amount of time, really not going to be too problematic at all. We have 11,000 in here, should probably increase it a little bit extra, and as you can see, we're just going to get some more construction going on here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to wait here for some time, but first I am going to be increasing my skills. So as you can see, we do have another two-handed weapon proficiency trait, and we should probably spec into something pretty fun. So let's see, what is fun? Increases your damage against mounts with two-handed weapons by 50%, and also increases your infantry's damage against mounts by 10%, or 40% more damage against shields with two-handed weapons. Right. Well, either one of these is going to be relatively useful. However, I personally do not agree with the whole 50% increased thing against mounts. I think you do enough damage against horses as it is, although if you are planning on fighting the Khuzait almost entirely, because obviously they are pretty much cavalry focused all the way through, then this is probably going to be a pretty decent pick early on. But for me, I'm actually going to be taking the shields because we are primarily going to be fighting against the Botanians, the Empire, and to a certain extent, yes, we will be fighting against the Khuzait, but I won't be using a two-handed against their forces anyway, because I'm literally not going to run at a horse archer with a two-handed weapon. It's just not going to happen. So I'm going to go for Shield Breaker here. Hopefully that perk is actually working. I don't actually know whether it is, but, well, that's a surprise that we'll just have to deal with. Yes, fantastic. Sounds like a good idea. Oh, yes, I actually meant to improve my engineering as well, by the way. So let me actually just increase my intelligence and increase my engineering, and then we're basically done. Fantastic. So let's hope that conception begins shortly, hopefully within the next day or two. We might be having a slight problem here, with the exception of Ataconia Castle having been taken very recently. Pendrake Castle was actually just taken as well by the Sturgians. Unfortunately, it does appear as though it is going to be taken back relatively fast. Obviously, it is quite close to Vlandian territory, as you can see right here, but that is to be expected, of course. These outlying fringe castles are never really going to be that easy for us to defend. Although, if I was there, then obviously that would be a bit of a different story. Now, unfortunately, it seems as though we have not been able to conceive just yet. And the reason why I'm coming back to you right here and right now is because I noticed a very large army walking by us. By the way, we're going to be taking caravans returning 5,000 gold when destroyed. Also, caravans have more elite troops. This is absolutely perfect for what we want to do with our trading skill. We want to make sure that we have as many caravans as we possibly can. Anyway, as you can see, look at this. This is the main problem that I was having here, and I'm not entirely sure how we're supposed to do this, because they're not going to run away. That's the problem. They're not going to run away, and I personally do not believe we will be able to do anything to them. Let's actually just have a quick look here. Oh, okay, so they have a bit of a weird mix. I don't know whether you noticed already, but look at this. They have some pretty good units, and then they have some trash. So they have 26 sharpshooters, and they have 26 vanguards, and they've got some sergeants and some billmans and some hardened crossbowmen and so on and so forth. And they even have some banner knights as well, which are a little bit scary. However, for the most part, they don't really have anything that good. So it really depends, how good are we going to be to defend against this army. It's going to be very, very hard for us to do that. It seems like they weren't able to complete the raid as well, by the way, on this army here, which I am very pleased about. So, on this village, shall we say, haha, on this army right here. Yeah, it's very good. Okay, anyway, steward skill has been improved. Obviously, these traits really don't do anything unless my perk mod actually does fix them. But villages you own, villages you own grow at double rate. Personally, I'd prefer to have that rather than the food consumption being reduced by 20%, because we do have another skill in the scouting tree. I think it is indeed scouting. Yeah, that is... Wait a minute. No, it's not scouting. It's probably tactics then. Yes. Okay, yeah, we're never going to get that. I probably should have taken that 20% one. Oh well, never mind. Never mind. Okay, Oleg, what are you doing, sir? He's just running around doing some random stuff. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to let them do whatever they want to do. If they want to raid my villages and things like that, then they can obviously do that if they want. Because at the moment, I would very much prefer to just conceive something right now, and we'll see what happens after that. Alright, so it's been a pretty significant amount of time since the previous little cut that you saw. Now, yeah, still no conception, by the way. Yeah, still nothing happening. I don't really know why that is. I believe it has been over 2 weeks, and I really have no idea what's happening with that. Anyway, we do have another trait point to spend with our charm skill, so let's have a look here. 30% chance to negate relationship penalty from kingdom decisions, or gain plus 10 more influence by winning tournaments. Alright, I've given my opinion about these traits before, and if you missed that in a previous series, by the way, there's a whole bunch of series down below through all kinds of playlists. And in those, I do all kinds of wide varieties of different stuff. I own my own kingdom, I use different units, I use different playstyles, I give myself and indeed impose different rules upon myself, and in most of them, I don't even use smithing. I know it's a sore point for some of you, but I know it's crazy. I don't use smithing in those series either. So, you know, if you haven't seen those and you are one of those people that doesn't like how smithing affects the game, then you can definitely check those out. Otherwise, this is an absolutely useless trait, in my opinion. I think it is absolutely pointless because 10%, not even 10%, but 10 more influence by winning tournaments. This is generally pretty good if you are basically just spamming tournaments all day long. This is fine. But 10 influence, 10 influence, I have 766 right now. I've continued to win battles after battles after battles, of course. But early on, this is going to be very good. But this is not an early trait. Look at it, it's 125 skill. Personally, I'd either like to see this trait combined with something else. So for example, combined with Icebreaker, for example, or combined with Show Your Scars or something like that. I feel like these should be combined together to make one early game push to increase the amount of renown and influence you get from these certain things. Because I know that there's a one-handed skill that improves your damage and speed, as far as I'm aware, with one-handed weapons as long as you don't have a shield equipped in the other hand. And I think that that's actually a very cool, cool style. It gives it your very own theming and playstyle and stuff like that, like you're a duelist of some kind. And I think that this, on top of that, would give you a pretty cool idea for like an RP of some kind, a nice character idea where you're a traveling duelist and you limit yourself to a certain amount of units or a certain kind of unit that you can use. Maybe you can only use mercenary units, or maybe you can only use units that you've rescued or whatever, because maybe you're playing like a Robin Hood kind of character. Anyway, this is going to definitely suit that, but for 125 level charm, I think it is absolutely pointless, and you're just going to have to take respectful opposition. It's just better in every single respect, even if it doesn't really help you that much. 10 more influence by winning tournaments at this point in the game is useless. Absolutely. So hopefully the developers will go back to the drawing board on that one. Obviously, I have no influence on what they decide to do or anything like that. They don't listen to me, I don't think. But anyway, yeah, that is a skill that needs to be combined with something else, in my opinion, at least. So otherwise, we are now here at Garrisons Castle, and a lot of my caravans, by the way, have been taken prisoner. I'm very disappointed about that, to be honest, because I have been just waiting pretty much all this time at one of my castles, fighting any bandits that I could get my hands on, but for the most part, literally just waiting. At one point, I waited for 10 or 11 days without doing anything, and nothing happened. And I'm talking no conception, no fighting, no armies nearby. Nothing happened whatsoever in those 10 days. I was the most bored person in the entirety of Calradia, with the exception of, obviously, the various husbands that we've so far killed off. But anyway, yes, they are definitely looking up at us and being like, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing here? Why are you, you know, why are you just standing there? Go and fight something, you know what I mean? But obviously I couldn't, because I wanted to try the whole conception thing. But that has not worked out in our favor whatsoever. It has not worked out at all, and I am very surprised that we have had nothing happen in that regard. I feel like maybe it's broken. I'm actually not sure. I feel like it might be broken. I don't know, because as I said, and as a couple of people have mentioned to me, it is a case of just waiting at a castle for a significant amount of time, which in my opinion is 14 days. I waited for 11 days, maybe more. I lost count at 11 days and I was still waiting there, I think. So I think I probably waited for like 13 or 14 or something like that. And let's face it, if you're not gonna have conception by that point, you're probably never gonna have conception. So I decided, hey, you know what, I'm gonna go and I'm just gonna do something else, and this is the something else. We're gonna be attempting to attack Gersagos Castle, and hopefully we'll be alright to do that without being attacked from any armies. Amusingly enough though, we have made peace with the Northern Empire. I don't know whether you noticed that from the no, you actually can't. You actually can't see anything. Yeah, you actually can't see anything at this point, because the developers disabled the ability for me to scroll around while we're doing a siege. I suppose that is in an attempt to try to prevent the player from seeing if there are any armies coming over or planning stuff or whatever the case may be. But yes, anyway, we have now battered down the walls and we are going to be attacking them post-haste. So let's see what we can do. Now, generally, I would get on a siege engine right now. Yeah, as I said in a previous episode, I'd love to see some kind of marker that would give us an idea as to how the siege engines are actually going to fire. Obviously, that is going to make things just that much more casual. Oh yes, I know a lot of people don't like the word casual when it comes to their game that they love so dearly. And no, don't get me wrong. I absolutely really enjoy Bannerlord. However, you got to admit that, you know, trebuchets are just kind of unusable at the moment. I mean, they're not unusable, but you do have to have a bit of trial and error. And personally, when you're in a siege situation and you want things to happen relatively fast, you know, you want to be able to help your forces out in a swift enough manner so that it will actually matter. You know, having to do trial and error is just not going to work, you know. I mean, yeah, sure, okay, you can spend the, I don't know, 2 minutes trying to shoot a rock at someone, but just look at how long this has taken so far. How long has this taken so far? 1 minute 15. All right, so I would basically be pretty much done with my experimentation at the trebuchet at this point, and I would have shot off maybe 3 rocks at this point, and there's no way I would have hit anyone. So obviously it's probably not the best idea to do any experimentation in a castle siege. Probably better to do it in a town siege, of course, but the example that I'm trying to make still stands, and basically I feel like it's better to, you know, just do things the old-fashioned way, and hopefully they'll add some kind of marker or something that will give us an idea as to what's going on with the projectile's travel path. Anyway, I actually wanted to end up doing this ultimate thing where we go over to rotate, because I don't know whether you can notice, but look at this. Everything seems quite nice here. I would like to be able to get a small little area that we can maybe go down to and then launch attacks to the remaining areas of the Western Empire by going through rotate. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to capture it and indeed take it as our very own. Now, of course, there are... Oh dear. Yeah, there's actually a lot of people here. There's 958. Okay, so this might be a bit problematic then. But I do have a lot of influence, so I'm hopeful that there will be... Okay. Nope, there isn't. Yeah, there aren't any lords that actually want to say hi to me. So that is great. Fantastic. So I guess what I will have to do is I will have to... Oh, hello there. Yes, now all of a sudden they come out of nowhere. Yes, okay. So I will be fighting Mr. Tynops immediately, and we will try to persuade him, okay? We will try to persuade him, but I don't think that's really going to work. Let's give this to Oleg. I feel like Oleg really does have a good opportunity to try to defend it and so on and so forth. And now we're going to go to Tynops and we're going to speak to him and we'll try to persuade him to join us, because I don't think Tynops actually has any fiefs that are particularly powerful. Let me actually just take a quick look at him. Oh, he does. Never mind. He actually does have Amatatis, which is going to be an extremely good one to get. But he does have -11 relation, so it is going to be very unlikely that he will join us for a decent sum. But we are getting 100% chances, which is great. So hopefully we'll be able to at least get through to the, coercing part. Yes, I tend to call it coercing because at the point when he says, hey, can you give me some money? But then, that's more coercing than anything else. So unfortunately, I don't have a huge amount of gold at the moment. I have 170. This guy has, as you can no doubt tell, 511,000. Unfortunately, that is not going to be enough to be able to persuade him, as I expected, and we're just going to head into battle against him, nevertheless. Alright, so I'm basically just going to go and pretty much just charge, I think. I think at this point, just charging in, considering our combat strength is so dramatically different from his, we shouldn't really have any difficulties murdering him in a very quick second, eh? Yes, a very quick second. So let's see what I can do here. Maybe I can just get a slight advantage with the environment. Alright, okay, fine, they mean business. Look at that, 61 piercing damage to the face I just took. And not a big fan of that, thank you, not a big fan. Now, I have read the latest development update that the developers of Bannerlord have put out, and they're talking about perks and they're talking about scenes and so on. And basically what they're saying is that they're going to be making some more scenes for variety, basically for variety's sake, but for a number of imperial villages and castles and stuff like that. So that's all very well and good. But the, in my opinion, more important part is that they are indeed going to be implementing more and more perks going forward. And they talked about scouting and steward and all that stuff. And that is very much, that is direly needed, in my opinion, sorely needed for those things to be implemented. I know a lot of people are actually not even playing the game at the moment, just purely for the fact that these perks are not implemented. And it really does need to change quite fast, to sort of appease these people, because otherwise the game is just going to die off, and we don't want that, do we? No, we don't want that. I mean, the game is actually really enjoyable. It just doesn't have every little, sort of standard thing that you would expect it to have. I mean, I understand the whole, the whole ideology behind early access, because of course early access is all about supporting a game through its early development and making suggestions, making bug reports, and just helping the developers out in these ways, and giving them good feedback and changes that you may like to see. That's generally why I mentioned to you, in the form of my commentary, what I personally disagree with, or what I agree with, what I love about the game, what I don't, and so on. And generally, having these perks be implemented finally is definitely going to make a massive difference to people's enjoyment. Because I know for me specifically, I think to myself, okay, what's the point in scouting? What is the point in scouting? Because even though this is actually a fantastic skill to level up, because let's face it, half food consumption, faster movement all over the place, bonus speed with high morale, and, well, extra 8 hit points is basically pointless in my opinion, but, you know, lay of the land, extra 3% movement speed total. I think that's pretty good, you know? All of this is pretty good. Engineering skill needs a bit of a revamp in my opinion. I personally feel like most of these traits are pretty awful, but, you know, they're not implemented. They're still not implemented, so obviously that needs to be done too. But, you know, once those are all implemented, it's gonna definitely bring some people back to the game, and they're gonna start enjoying it just that much more, just for that fact, you know, because that generally will give a much more well-rounded early experience to people. Because if they find out that their favorite tree of skills, like let's say you want to be, I mean, I know that in the latest version, which is 1.5.3 as far as I'm aware, I know that in that, bows and crossbows have had their traits improved and indeed implemented most of the time. As you can see right here, the crossbow tree is no longer just a single line of selections. And the same thing with bows. And I think throwing might also be implemented to a certain degree as well. You'd have to check bannerlordperks.com to more accurately find out information on that, because I haven't checked it for a while, because obviously I'm playing on 1.5.2, so I don't really have to worry about any of these things actually being changed for me specifically. Although, maybe I do. Maybe I do. I'm actually not sure about that, because as far as I am aware, throwing only had one path, but I don't know whether you noticed, but there's actually two in my version, so it might very well be that they have implemented it here. Oh dear, we're declaring war. No, we're actually saying, oh, I have the deciding vote. Okay, this is, you know what, I'm actually going to say yes. I'm actually going to say yes to this, and I'm saying yes to this for a very important reason. Britannia doesn't really have anything too powerful for us to fight against, and the Western Empire, I'd like to make peace with them if at all possible. I'd like to actually restore my HP first off. That would be the most dire need at the moment, and then hopefully I'll be able to fight this army. I'd love to be able to fight Vipon's army, because he has 3 vassals in there. And if we can eliminate those vassals, we're just going to make the Western Empire even weaker, and then maybe we can force them into some kind of peace agreement. Because this is what's going on right now with our diplomacy. You can see here that from the Northern Empire, we are receiving 2,000 gold every single day, I believe, or every single week. I'm actually not sure. I think it's every single day. And we have so far received 44,000, which is actually quite significant. Unfortunately, the other realms have already made peace with us, so I couldn't tell how much tribute we gained from them over time, but I can assure you it was no doubt relatively substantial. I very much appreciate that. Oh. I don't agree with this, but we're going to do it nevertheless, because the combat strength is quite clearly in our favor. I'm not entirely sure why the Aserai are in such a bad spot. They seem a bit weird to me. I don't know. I don't know why they're in such a bad way, but okay. Anyway, we're going to be fighting this guy now, because I do have the ability to do so, and we'll hopefully be able to defeat him. I mean, our combat strength is in our favor, of course, but not as much as, well, other fights. Oh, and we're actually in a village. Oh, this is actually not that good. This is not that good for me. Ooh, we might have some issues here. We might have some issues. I am not a big fan of this, mainly because this is fighting uphill, and this gives all of our units a much harder time of avoiding all of these little vegetable patches and crop areas and all these little walls as well that the villagers have created and things. So it is definitely going to make things much harder, especially considering Iceni is very low on HP. Yes. Okay, so I got hit for 56 damage. Gotta say, pretty impressive shot, to be honest. I turned for basically about a second, and the person shot at it. So, you know, that I gotta say that provide, you know, that gives me a sense of, oh yeah, you know what, good work. I'm going to give you some applause there Very nicely done. But I don't think we really need to worry too much, because my forces are dramatically better than his. As you can no doubt tell, he had mostly recruits, and he did have a couple of horse archers that could have proved quite difficult for us to deal with, but nothing really to worry about here. And there you go. Nice renown, nice influence, and we were able to take them prisoner now, which is great, which is fantastic, because this now means that they are off the battlefield. They're not going to be changing anything about the game world whatsoever for at least maybe 10, 20 days. I'm not entirely sure, but whatever the case, they're off, and that's all that matters. So now that we have declared war against Britannia, that gives me time to refocus on things that actually matter. For example, these castles right here, Flinthold Castle and Utherlame Castle, they both matter much more in my opinion than Rote. I know that seems like a really crazy thing to say, but it's true, because Rote, while it was probably the best target that I had while I was only at war against the Western Empire, but now that we have Britannia as another target, it just makes so much more sense for us to do it this way. Now I'm going to be just auto-resolving here against Corinne, because of course she is just no match for our massive Sturgian might, and otherwise these two castles right here, they're going to give us a clear path into Britannia territory, and it's also going to connect Nevyansk Castle to our main territory as well. So Flinthold Castle is probably going to be the first thing that we'd like to take, and I also want to do a little bit of something here. Was this actually successfully raided? I'm actually not entirely sure, but yeah, I mean, this is the reason also why I kind of felt like, okay, so now here's the thing. I am definitely liking the fact that more vassals have been added to the game. I just don't really know whether they have overdone it a little bit. Because as it stands right now, there's a lot of vassals. And you can no doubt tell that, because I'm literally running around and I'm seeing a vassal almost all the time. I personally felt like the balance that they had before in previous versions was decent enough. And now don't get me wrong, I'm perfectly happy to have basically any number of vassals, but I think it might be a bit too much. I'm not sure, because as it was before, oh dear, yes, oh no, that's actually not that big a deal. Only a couple of people were taken prisoner here, but this is a problem, because Vlandia is definitely one of our more powerful opponents. Let me actually just take a quick look at their combat strength. Yes, as you can quite clearly tell, Vlandia definitely needs to be taken down a peg or two, so I'll have to do something about that. The Crusade have not done anything against us so far. I think very, very scarcely they started to do it at the very beginning of the series, but that's pretty much it. Anyway, Flinthold Castle has about 600 defenders, and I think that's going to be it for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, then by all means, leave a like. I greatly appreciate it, and otherwise, I thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.